The Ukraine-Russia war has entered its fifth week, but President Putin's troops and war machines have failed so far to capture the prize in Ukraine, that is the capital city of Kiev, despite unsparing attacks from the outside using missiles, rockets, shells. Ukrainian troops have also taken back the control of a crucial strategic suburb of Kiev, which was so far under the control of the Russian forces. Take a look at the fiercest fight that's currently on for the capital city of Ukraine. Nearly a month of this war, nearly a month of endless violence across the beautiful landscape of Ukraine. But there's one city that stands tall despite the Russian shelling. One city that has endured and persisted no matter what Russia has thrown at it. Ukraine's capital of Kiev, the citadel that Putin wants but hasn't been able to dominate so far. Ukrainian forces are guarding Kiev with everything they've got. It's where President Volodymyr Zelensky also remains camped.
It was a day of difficult events, difficult conclusions, but it was another day that brought us all closer to our victory, to peace for our state. Glory to Ukraine.
In a significant victory, the key suburb of Kiev is back in Ukrainian control as Russian troops were pushed further away from the capital. Ukraine also put out a video of Russian saboteurs being detained in the capital, pinned down to the ground and taken into custody. But that doesn't mean Russia has backed off. Russian troops blew up a bridge over the Desna River that connects the city of Chernihiv to Kiev. This bridge was being used for civilian evacuation and humanitarian aid. That is no longer possible, as nothing remains now of that bridge.
There were two barrages of rockets fired from multi-barrel rocket launchers, which was about 30 blasts, if I could count them, 15 and then 15, which was also in the eastern part of the city, heavy bombardment. As far as ground forces are concerned, there is not much movement. The reports are Russian forces are digging in and making the defenses on the perimeter of Kiev city so that in case there's any counterattack from Ukrainian forces, they can stop it. Also, that they are probably trying to encircle the city and stay as such and not trying to enter the city.
So how close is Russia to the capital city? The latest data suggests that Russian efforts to capture Kiev remain stalemated. Ukrainian defenses have badly disrupted the Russian advance on the east bank of the Dnipro. Russians seem to be now focused on ramping up their presence to the west of Kiev. Russian troops have been facing an uphill battle getting into Kiev. Chechens from the Sheikh Mansour Volunteer Battalion also engaged in an intense battle with the Russian military near Kiev. The question is, how long can Ukraine's capital hold out for? With Rajesh Pawar in Kiev, Bureau Report, India Today. And as always, India Today is the only channel reporting from every single nodal point of this unfolding conflict. It's 28 days of this crisis, and there appear to be no signs whatsoever of things actually calming down or slowing down, because overnight, over the last 24 hours, as we're showing you in picture after picture, there is destruction taking place. Neighborhood after neighborhood is being reduced to rubble. Airstrikes are happening, missile strikes are happening, shelling is taking place, and the body count is definitely piling up. Joining us live this evening on this particular broadcast, we have with us Geeta Mohan, our foreign affairs editor, who is the first Indian reporter, reporting and broadcasting live from Moscow. Gaurav Sawant is in Warsaw in Poland, and with us live in Kiev, one of the only journalists reporting from inside Kiev at this time, and I'd like to start with him, is Rajesh Pawar. Rajesh, it's been almost a month now. The siege of Mariupol is taking place. We've seen what's happening in Kharkiv and Kherson. I want to ask you about Kiev itself, because there is a sense on the outside that the Ukrainian forces have managed to take back control of certain suburbs of Kiev, but the attacks within Kiev are continuing to happen. Am I right? Take us through your assessment.
See, there were numerous attacks today. In the morning, there was about 30 big explosions of probably rockets which were fired on the eastern side of the city. After this, there have been 3-4 bigger explosions.
Okay, we've lost that line with Rajesh. We'll go back to him in just a moment. Gaurav, quickly coming to you now. What are you hearing about the scale and intensity of the attacks? Because there have been 6 rounds of talks so far. None of those, nothing on the ground has actually slowed down, Gaurav.
Shiv, we were interacting with some of the Ukrainians who have fled from Ukraine and are currently in Poland, and the information they're giving us is actually harrowing. Rajesh was just mentioning 30 rocket attacks. The information we have is more than 30 rocket attacks, one after the other in the eastern suburbs of Kiev, and then multiple explosions subsequently. And these were all targeted at some air defense assets of Ukraine, of the Ukraine armed forces. And this is an indication that this is based on very specific intelligence. It is based not just on one particular area, but an entire area where the Russians suspect Ukrainians have their air defense assets. There was also some information that some of these assets were being moved from one place to another.
Yes.
And they targeted that entire area whether these were the S-300 systems or some other surface-to-air missiles, they were targeted. That's point one. Point two, Shiv, extremely critical. The place where we are right now is also where some of the American equipment has just come in to be sent across to Ukraine. And this is why this area becomes very sensitive, because resources to Ukraine to continue with this standoff, to continue to take on the Russian forces is happening from where we are right now. And this equipment helps the Ukrainian armed forces.
Yes.
But there is also this apprehension that the massive truck movement that we see around us, the massive movement may be interdicted moment these vehicles and these trains enter Ukraine. That is where they become fair game for the Russian forces.
And, they will become fair game, and Russia has made that very clear as well. They say that any move by any neighboring country to help Ukraine will be seen as an act of war. I'm going to get Geeta in on that in just a moment, but we've got Rajesh back in on that line. We lost you for a moment, Rajesh. Complete your point. You were talking about what you see happen now around Kiev with everything that's been happening 1 month in.
Look, Shiv, as I said, the air attacks, the attacks by missiles on Kiev city have intensified in the last 48 hours. Today morning, there were 2 rocket barrages fired in the eastern side of the city.
Yes.
About 30 blasts in total. I can't verify they were fired by the Russian soldiers onto the city or by the Kiev, by the Ukrainian forces on the Russian forces on the outskirts. Besides this, there were a few more explosions after that, big explosions, one of them probably by a cruise or a hypersonic missile. What reports I'm getting from around the city is that not much ground offensive around Kiev, and the reports is that Russian forces are digging in. They are making defenses on the northern and northeastern side of the city, which indicates that probably Russians are planning for a big haul, for a long stay here, and they don't intend to enter inside the city. They intend to surround the city from all sides, like they did in Kharkiv and in Mariupol. This seems to be intentions by their actions,
Yes.
what they are doing outside on the outskirts of the city. As far as this small city you're talking of, it's a small town which is about 40-50 kilometers from Kiev, which was retaken by the Ukrainian forces in a counteroffensive. However, the forces which are just next to Kiev, on the doorsteps of Kiev, there has been no counteroffensive and nothing has been taken back by the Ukrainian forces. As far as Mariupol is concerned, still some fighting is going on in certain quarters, and it's more like guerrilla warfare now. The people of Azov battalion holding on to certain streets and certain houses, and they are giving a fight to the Russians, who are trying to clear the whole city now, house by house, street by street. Shiv.
Okay, street by street, guerrilla warfare, urban warfare, taking over the more conventional style of battle that we've seen during the initial stages of this. Geeta, to bring you in, you've been reporting from Moscow, the first Indian reporter there, aligned with what's happening inside Ukraine. What are you hearing? There have been 6 rounds of talks already, Geeta. The Russians appear to have rejected the proposal for a face-to-face kind of meeting between Zelensky and Putin. But speaking strictly of the military operations inside Ukraine, that doesn't appear to be slowing down. Russia seems to, be still very, very focused on reaching whatever military objectives it had set out to.
Well, absolutely, Shiv. A very resilient and a very determined Russia. Moscow is not going to change tactics unless and until it gets what it wants. That's the messaging from Moscow. Officials that we've been speaking with, the experts that I've been talking to, they're all quite clear that the neutrality clause when it comes to Ukraine on the NATO aspect is something that is non-negotiable. I'm here in the heart of Moscow city, right outside the Bolshoi Theatre, across which is the Red Square, Shiv. And if you see over here, it seems like life is normal. It doesn't seem like a city that is going through the harshest economic sanctions. Why do I say that? Because Russia is a country that has been the most sanctioned regime in a long time. And they have been suffering sanctions, unilateral Western sanctions, not UN sanctions, unilateral Western sanctions for a very long time.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount of stress and tension when we speak to people, but doesn't seem like they've been impacted because of the resilient economic structure within. We don't know how long that's going to last, Shiv, but I have with me a student. Now, it's very difficult to get people to really come out and speak on camera, but this is a student from Syria, a very rare country that actually comes out in support of Putin administration, as does China. Mohanad over here is studying Russian language. Mohanad, did you, when you heard that there is an action by the Russians into Ukraine, did you first think that, okay, there are sanctions that you need to go to the bank, hit the bank, get money out? What was your first feeling with the news that was coming in?
Of course, first impressions about war is always not good. But when the days are going day after day, I'm seeing that nothing really changes. Here in Russia, economical situation, yes, some prices are going up, but not that much. I think in general we can say it's about 10 to 15% maximum. All the prices, the maximum going up is like that, 10 to 15%. And as you were saying, due to the normal life or the daily life, as a student, or the other people, nothing really changed. Everything.
Have you been able to withdraw money, as in when you wanted? Are you able to use cards, especially international cards, since you're a foreign national?
Of course, Visa card and MasterCard are not working anymore, but there are solutions. As you know, I just goes to Union Pay and everything is okay. According to the local cards, Sberbank and etc., they are working regularly as usual.
Okay, so that's what I was talking about, Shiv. Over here, the resilience in how to handle the situation in economy domestically is something that Russia certainly has mastered, given the fact that it has always been sanctioned. So we'll have to wait and see how the harsher economic sanctions by the West is going to hit Russia, and what would that time period be? Because any war, any conflict is not sustainable after a certain point in time.
Gaurav, the impact on Russia is being felt. It's been 1 month of very, very punishing economic sanctions on Russia. The people of Russia are resilient. They are, feeling their way around the different options that they have at their disposal in terms of banks and things like that over there. But you've got President Biden of the United States landing in the city you are in right now, in just about 36 hours from now, Gaurav. What are the expectations? You've been inside Ukraine. You're about to enter Ukraine once again. Biden is headed to Poland. The people of Ukraine have been asking, Biden to send out a message by also coming inside Ukraine. Obviously, that's not on the table as far as we know. But what do you see this arrival of Biden actually achieving in this crisis, Gaurav?
So, at one level, it's very symbolic. At one level, the US president arrives here. He meets the president of Poland. pats him on his back, tells him that you're doing a great job, that you've taken more than 2 million refugees in your country, and that you're providing them healthcare and education and a chance at a new life. And it's creditable that you're doing that. So that's a shot in the arm. He'll also provide, from what we've been told, a financial aid package for Poland, because Poland already is feeling the stress within weeks. Fuel prices here have gone up, gas prices have gone up, the infrastructure already feeling the pressure. And locals here, like on our broadcast yesterday, some people just came up and said, why should Poland take all the pressure? Let people use Poland as a staging camp and then move elsewhere in Europe, or let America take some of them to America. America can't just give money and say our responsibility is over. That's one part, Shiv. The second part, and more critical, is the need for defense hardware. Poland wants surface-to-air missiles and more, in numbers, better than the S-300 systems. They're looking at the Patriot systems. They want F-16 fighter jets. They're also looking at additional fighter jets. They also want more American boots on ground for protection of NATO territory, because their apprehension is, today it's Ukraine, in the years ahead, it could well be Poland and other countries that Russia will then directly threaten to take on NATO countries by saying this is our sphere of influence and NATO needs to move back. Russia anyway thinks whatever happened post 1991 was very unfair and unjust to then Soviet Union. So that is where Poland wants a lot of reassurances and military hardware from the US president. How much of this will they actually get remains to be seen, but the military hardware that is coming into this area where we are is huge in terms of the C-130J aircraft coming in, the other aircraft that are coming in, the troops that are coming in, carrying out training exercises here, and then those resources moving into Ukraine from here, Shiv.
The movement of all that weaponry is being seen very, very closely from the Kremlin right now. Since the beginning of this crisis, the Russian government, the Russian president has made it very clear that all of these things are going to be seen as hostile acts by the neighboring countries. No direct action by any of the NATO countries so far. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. But what other kinds of help are being provided is very, very visible. Gaurav, Geeta, Rajesh, thanks very much for being with me on this particular aspect on day 28 of the crisis in Ukraine.